Did you recently buy a new Poolin embroidery machine, maybe the EOC06 or even the new EOC07, but you haven't figured out how to use it yet? If that's your situation, I think you're in the right place for this video. Now, during this video, we're going to talk about several things. First of all, I'm going to show you the settings that I use in my machine. Second of all, I'm going to show you how you can load a design onto your machine. We'll go over how to hoop your stabilizer in your fabric. After that, I'll show you how you can do a tension test so that you can determine what tension works best for your machine. And then we'll go over the 3 screens on the Poolin machine that you're going to use to make your project. Let's start by talking about the basic settings that I use on my Poolin EOC06. So let's go ahead and turn the machine on. And it is going to take just a minute for it to come on and be fully functional. The first thing that pops up is a warning, and it says the hoop unit guide will move. Please remove the hoop. Now, I don't have any hoops on the arm of my machine, so I can go ahead and say okay. But if you have any hoops on it, go ahead and remove those now. Now, even though I want to focus on the basic settings of the machine, I really can't get past this screen without a little explanation. So there's 2 ways that you can get designs to your machine. You can use what's called in-stitch. That's a wireless transfer, or you can use a good old thumb drive like I'm going to use today. If you're interested in learning more about in-stitch, I have a video on my channel and I'll put a link to it in the video description below. Since we're not using in-stitch right now, I'm going to click on embroidery. Now this is what I had on my machine last, but I want to point out some things up here. So you have your 9 squares, that's what you click on to go to settings, and then later, like I discussed in the video intro, these are the 3 pages that we're going to focus on when it's time to make our design. For now, let's look at the settings. And in particular, I want to look at the parameter settings. From the parameter settings, you can adjust the operating speed. You can decide whether you want it on a trimming mode of auto or manual, but I keep mine on auto. You can also have it where the buzzer will sound, or you can turn that off. You can have thread break detection on. I always leave that on, but if you want to turn it off, you can. And then when it's talking about lighting, it's talking about the light that's over your hoop. I have mine off now because things video so much better without it on. But if you want it on, you just tick it on right there. Now down here is a feature that I think is just amazing for a single needle machine with a large hoop that really is what I consider to be very affordable. And that's the fact that your machine can trim your jump stitches for you. Now with this setting, what that 5 means is jump stitches have to be at least 5 millimeters long for the machine to automatically trim them. And that's the smallest that you can have it. Now if you don't want the machine to trim all those jump stitches, you can increase the length of the jump stitch. I'm not even sure how high this goes, but I don't care because I want it to trim every single jump stitch that it will. So I leave that on 5. Now let's go to page 2, and on page 2 you can see that my tension is set to 12 right now. In a little bit I'm going to show you how to do tension testing because that's really what you need to do to figure out what tension you should use on your machine. And then lastly, you can adjust the LCD brightness. That's the brightness of this screen. Now if I had changed anything, first I would click on Save and then I would click on Back. Since I didn't change anything, I didn't need to click on Save, but I do need to click on Back. Now it's time to transfer our designs. I'm going to plug my thumb drive into my computer. Now I'm using a Mac, so it might look a little bit different than on a PC, but here's my thumb drive right here. So I have a tension test file on my desktop. Let's drag that over. And then I have this little cat design. Now I think this is a great design to stitch out today because it not only has fill stitches, but it also has satin column stitches. It's also not a very large design. Notice that the colors in it look a little odd. That's one thing about DST files. And a DST file extension is a type of file that the Poolin embroidery machines use. But DST files bring in really bright and strange colors. But we can fix that on our machine. Now let's talk about how to hoop something in one of the hoops that comes with your Poolin machine. Now with my EOC06, I received two of these. These have a stitching area of about 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches. I received this medium size hoop. It has a stitching area of, I think it's 7.9 by 7.9. If it's anything different, I'll put a little title at the bottom of this screen and tell you what it is. And then lastly, the Poolin machines come with really generous size hoops. So with the EOC06, this one is 7.9 inches wide, and I think it's 11.2 inches tall. Then the new Poolin EOC07 comes with even a larger hoop. So here's the hoop. What you can do to get your fabric and your stabilizer hooped is, first of all, you want to loosen this thumb screw. That's going to allow you to take the inside or the top hoop off. So we have a top hoop and a bottom hoop. On this top hoop and the bottom hoop, there's a little arrow that's just embossed into the plastic. And I think that might be hard to see in this camera, but hopefully you can see that. This arrow and the arrow right here have to match up. So to hoop something, you're just going to place this to the side. I have some cutaway stabilizer and a piece of fabric. I'm going to make sure that the stabilizer and the fabric go beyond the hoop. I like to have a generous amount outside the hoop. Then we're going to place this right back on top, making sure that arrow is still up in the right corner. And I like to start by pressing in the corners at the top. Let me go ahead and pull some of this fabric out. Then I like to work my way down. So I'm going to push in this corner. And then lastly, I need to push this corner in. Now, I got it to go down, but if you can't, go ahead and lift up on the hoop and pull out slightly on the bottom hoop so that that can go down inside there. Okay, so let's go ahead and get some of this fabric straightened out a little bit. Now let's go ahead and tighten it back up. So you're going to screw the thumb screw back in. And if you want to, you can use a straight screwdriver to get it in even tighter, but I don't typically do that. Now I see a little bit of lumpiness here, so then what I like to do is I like to grab onto my stabilizer and my fabric and just pull those out. Now if you are embroidering on something that's stretchy, you have to be super careful about stretching your fabric. If you're working on a t-shirt or a sweatshirt and you actually overstretch your fabric or you stretch it out of shape, once you take the hoop off, you're going to have puckers. So when I'm using something that's stretchy like t-shirts or sweatshirts, I typically like to attach my stabilizer to my fabric using basting spray. All right, let's go ahead and get this straightened out just a little bit more. And I think that looks pretty good. Now it's time to get our designs on the machine so we can start stitching something. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Pattern. That means Design, and we see the design that I last used on my machine. To get my two designs off my thumb drive, I need to plug it in right over here. Now we can click on USB Pattern. And I see the tension test right here, and I see the cat right there. We're going to start by doing a tension test. I want you to know how to do one so that you can figure out the right tension for you. Now this little tension test is simply about a 1 inch tall by 1/4 inch wide satin column. And I think this is a great way to determine if your tension settings are correct or if you need to adjust them. Now that we have the design on the canvas, we're going to click on Config. Now in Config, I can change the color of the thread. I don't need to for this one, but I will on the cat. But I can change the color of the thread, I can change the hoop, and I do need to do that because right now I'm using the medium hoop. And remember, we hooped up the fabric and the stabilizer on the small hoop. So I'll select that. Now I can just hit back. It's asking, do I want to exit and save the content? And I do. So I'll say yes. Now some other things that you can do in the config or the configuration settings is you can mirror your design, you can resize it slightly, you can rotate it, and you can add text. Since I'm not changing my thread color and I have the right hoop, now we can go over to embroidery. Because I don't want to use the center of the fabric and the stabilizer that I hooped up, I need to move this design up and over to the right. So I'm going to click on this up arrow. And then I'll click on the right arrow. And I think that looks good right there. You can see that right now I have a tension of 12. I think I want to test 9, 12, 15, and 18. So I'm going to bump this down to 9. I'll click ready. And then we need to put the hoop on the machine. Now in between each setting, I'm going to come right back over here. I'm going to change the tension. I'm going to move the design a little bit so I'm not stitching over the old design, and I'll run each tension test like that. We'll look at the results when I'm done. So here's the hoop that we got ready earlier, and I want to show you on this side, there's these 2 openings right here. And to get this on the machine, you have to unlock those openings. Hopefully you can see right now there's a metal bar there. To unlock them, you just press this to the side. Now those 2 areas that I showed you, they're going to go right onto these 2 metal pins. So let's go ahead and lift the presser foot all the way, slide our hoop under it. I'm going to lift it up just a little bit, and you can see they're against those pins, but it's not going on because I need to unlock it. So I'm going to pull this forward, and they slide right on. And if I test it, I can tell that they're locked on. Now let me cut some of this away so that you're going to be able to see better. The next thing I need to do before I do any stitching is to go ahead and lower that presser foot. Then all I have to do is press start. All right, let's go ahead and take the hoop off so we can look at those. Now remember, this one on the far right was a tension of 9, then 12, then 15, then 18. So when I take this off the hoop, we're going to look at the back of it. Even though it's on the right side now, when I flip the hoop, 9 is going to be on the left side. To determine the right tension, you want to have about 1/3 of the top color, then 1/3 of bobbin color, and then another 1/3 of top color. This was a tension of 9. There's really not enough bobbin showing because that was too loose. It's allowing too much of that thread to go to the bottom because of how loose the tension is. This one is a tension of 12, and I really like that one. That's the one I'll probably go with. That's the one I've been using. The next one was 15, and that looks really good too. And then we get up to 18. Now 18 was too tight. It wasn't allowing enough of the top thread to go to the back. So I'm going to settle on 12. And while I'm thinking about it, I might as well change that on my machine right now. All right, let's go ahead and put this back on so we can make that cat. So to find the cat, let's go back to pattern. I'm going to click on the picture of the little USB drive. And here's the cat, so I'll select it. Now because my tension test was done up there, I think I'm going to move the cat down a little bit, but we'll do that in just a little bit. Okay, so I have my pattern. I'm still on that 5.5 inch hoop, so let's go to config. Now here I can change the colors, and let's go ahead and do that. If I click on color, I see the 4 layers of color, or the 4 colors of stitches that I have in the design. The first one is red. You can see that's around the outside of the ears, and for that one I want a light pink. So you can scroll through the pages this way, but I know the pink that I want is on page 9, so I'm going backwards, and it's right here. So I'll go ahead and select it. It automatically moved to the next set of stitches. For these stitches, I want to use a darker pink. So let's select this one right here. The next one is identifying the nose. It's what is represented here with blue stitches. I want that to be that darker pink as well. So I'll select it again. And then lastly, we have black already selected. And I'm going to leave that for the eyes, the mouth, and the whiskers. Now before I move on, I want to go ahead and save those colors. There's nothing else I need to do on this page, so now let's go to embroidery. All right, let's go ahead and move the design down just a little bit. And I think that'll be just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and click ready. I'm going to go ahead and change my thread color to get that light pink on there. Then we'll be ready to start the stitch out. Now I recently dropped a video where I showed from start to finish, step by step, how to thread the machine. So we're going to skip that at this point. If you want to see how you thread it, I'll put a link to that video down below. Lastly, and it's hard to see on the screen because it is just hard to record an LCD screen, but I can see that there is 5,498 stitches to this design. Also, you can see it says it's going to take about 10 minutes. All right, let's put that presser foot back down. I have the thread changed to light pink, so now we can press start. Now that it's finished that first set of stitches with the light pink, it prompts me on the LCD screen to change it to the darker pink. Once you get your thread change, you just press start again. Now it's time for the black thread, and we'll be on our last stitches. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. I want to talk about a few things. Now typically between my various stitches, I clean up my threads. I wasn't too concerned about it because that was just the tension test. Also, let's talk about this here. There's one string right here, and I have made this design 3 times, and that has shown up all 3 times. So that is just something in the design. Now down here, you can see that this black is a little light there, and I was holding the hoop down, and I probably messed up the tension because that issue has not happened before this time. It didn't happen on the first 2 times I stitched this out. And then this one, let's just clean that up. All in all, I think this is a really sweet design, and I think it could look cute on a baby onesie or maybe a shirt for a little girl. So if you have a Poolin EOC06 or EOC07 and you just haven't figured out how to use it yet, I hope the video's been helpful.